What's going on, everyone? My name is Eric, and on the channel today I have the privilege of showing you all this. This is an early BC Rich Platinum Series Ironbird. And it's a pretty awesome guitar, and it seems like the Ironbird is like the guitar for a lot of the BC Rich fans. They're pretty rare for the most part. I know you can get the newer ones and everything like that, but apparently just these old ones are just built a little different. Not too sure of the exact year, but this is an old Platinum Pro Series. If you are a BC Rich aficionado and you know how to point out the specific year on this, let me know in the comments below, because I'm still trying to figure out what year this one actually is. It's been modded, of course. There has a bit of a different paint job on the back of the guitar, I believe. Different knobs, different pickups and things like that, and the bridge has been upgraded too. But the whole point of this video and why I have this guitar here is because I'm going to be setting it up and dealing with the action on this guitar. As you can see, the action is kind of high, and the bridge is actually sitting on the body. I don't know how great you can see that on camera, but the bridge is pretty well sitting flat on the body, and the strings are still sitting kind of high. So there's a few different things that we can do. You could shim the neck on this. I'm not really going to do that because I want to keep this thing as kind of original as possible without going too crazy. I know this guitar has been modded with the extra Floyd Rose nut and everything like that, but this specific mod and change will help you get your strings sitting much lower and way more comfier than they already are on your BC Rich Platinum Series. Very specifically the Platinum Series, and we're going to talk about that in just a second. So without further ado, let's get this on the bench and see what's up. A very unique thing about some of these older BC Riches, they had this bridge called the Bendmaster bridge, and it's not in production anymore for a number of different reasons. But if your old BC Rich Platinum Series has one of those Bendmaster bridges, and if it's falling apart, there's a new company called Bridgemaster, which is actually made by Glenn Graff, who used to work for BC Rich, and he makes these bridges as direct replacements for your Bridgemaster in case they do fail. And let's take a look at the action in a bit more closer detail. You can see that is pretty high off the fingerboard, and even when you go to actually play it up past the 12th fret, or honestly past the 9th fret, and now the bridge is basically touching the body. So now we have a few options of what we can do. And the first one, which might be the obvious one, is shimming the neck. And that's where you're adding shims of wood under the neck, and they basically just are sandwiched between the bolt and the plate and the neck. And essentially they're sandwiched like right in here, so then the neck would be raised up. And that's fine and everything, but what we're gonna do is actually change the saddles of this Bridgemaster bridge. They're actually just Floyd Rose saddles, so as you can see here, these saddles are actually sitting pretty high, and we want to be able to use the fine tuners as well. So you can see there's actually a little bit of space where the string and the saddle is actually sitting higher than it kind of should be. What we're going to do is actually put some Floyd Rose special saddles on that actually sit flat. So when I took these saddles off initially just to try it, it seemed like these were essentially G and D string saddles because of the arch that they were sitting on, to then account for the middle part of the neck radius that sits the highest, whereas the Floyd Rose special saddles, they all sit very flat. So we're going to throw those on, and that should take the action down a little bit more. Now, this is the interesting thing about the Platinum Series guitars from BC Rich. You know, they're even going to say Platinum Series. So if you get a Platinum Series BC Rich from, let's say, the 90s or the 80s, you will probably be running into this kind of issue. And I'm going to use air quotes for issue because it depends on how you look at it and what you consider an issue on your guitar. So essentially, these guitars were designed for standard E tuning, which is a little bit mind-boggling because obviously now there's so many different tunings. And that's been told to me right from Glenn Graff, who actually used to work for BC Rich right under Bernie Rico Sr. and Jr., and who actually designed the Bridgemaster bridge here. That's a direct replacement for the Bendmaster bridge. So he was working with BC Rich in the 90s, and he said this guitar and these Platinum Series guitars were designed for standard E tuning. Or essentially what you could do is take your standard E tuning and drop it all the way down to whatever you wanted to tune to, maybe down to B or down to C or something, and you didn't have to use crazy heavy strings because the action was already inherently a little bit higher, so you could get away with using thinner strings to actually get you to where you wanted to be in terms of tuning. Very kind of an interesting niche design here. Obviously, you run into some issues like as we're facing now, because the owner of this guitar wants to run 10 to 52 and drop D, and now we have an issue of high action. Now, if you want to take these strings and tune it down to, let's say, B, for example, or even a little bit lower like A, you could probably get away with it because the action is a little bit higher. But he doesn't want to do that, so we have to find a little bit of a middle ground. So we're not going to shim the neck, and we're just going to be changing those saddles. And the other thing is that the neck is straight, and I don't want to crank the truss rod any more than it already is, because it is already doing pretty fine, especially with the pressure crack on the headstock. I don't want to maybe open any extra can of worms that we don't really need to. So let's change these saddles, and let's see where the action is sitting when we're done with this. Alright, so something I noticed when installing the high E replacement Floyd Rose saddle for this Bridgemaster bridge is that when you go to install it, it actually doesn't sit flat. And that's the old one as well, the ones that came with this bridge. That one doesn't sit flat. It actually is going to be resting on just on the side end of the collar here that the Floyd Rose arm is going to sit in. So it literally sits right on there. So that's a bit of an issue that you're going to be running into if you have this bridge here. Even as you can see up on the front here, it is sitting on an angle. The old one did that as well. And just for reference, this is the original saddle as well. It is still sitting on an angle and it is still resting on the collar of it's resting on the collar where the Floyd Rose arm is going to sit. So bear that in mind if you're going to be upgrading the saddles on your Bridgemaster, Bendmaster replacement bridge and things like that, just so you can get the action lower on these Platinum Series BC Rich guitars. And here we have the BC Rich Platinum Series Ironbird all finished up here. I got the new bridge saddles on here. Those are from a Floyd Rose special bridge. And as you can see, it might be hard to see on camera, but the action is way lower now. So if you have one of these BC Rich Platinum Series guitars with the Bendmaster bridge or the recently upgraded Bridgemaster, and you don't want to shim the neck of your guitar to get the action lower because of this guitar's inherent design, you could then swap these saddles on your upgraded Bridgemaster bridge if that's what you've done. And you might be able to switch out the saddles to something modern and something that sits a little bit more flush with the actual base plate of the tremolo that you have, and actually get your action a little bit nicer on the guitar. And as you can see, the bridge is still touching the body. That's what the owner of this guitar wants. You essentially wanted to block the bridge on this guitar. And essentially we've kind of done that without really blocking the guitar. We just crank the bridge all the way down, put another spring in there, and this thing is not going anywhere, which is super sick. A couple specs real fast for you on this guitar, and I'm going to do my best with this because there's not a lot of information on this guitar, or at least these old Platinum Series for some reason. We have a maple neck with a rosewood fingerboard. This guitar also has 24 frets, and it actually is a 24 3/4 inch scale, which is very unique to this guitar. Nice 6-in-line headstock. We have Grover tuners as well. The additional Floyd Rose nut that was added as a aftermarket upgrade. We have the Bridgemaster bridge, which is an upgrade for the Bendmaster bridge. That is a Glenn Graff design, and he used to work for BC Rich, as I said earlier in the video, and if you need one for your guitar, I'm sure you can message him and he would get one for you. Obviously, this guitar does not have its original pickups. We have a set of EMG 81 and 85 pickups, volume and tone. This little hole that's in the guitar here, that was for the original pickups to split the coils, so you just had like a little mini toggle switch on there just to split it instead of doing a push-pull system. And yeah, that's kind of it. I'm honestly not sure what the body is made of, and I don't think that really matters too much. I've seen some people online saying agathis, I've seen some people saying alder, mahogany. I've also seen some people in the forums saying plywood. Let me know in the comments below if you have one of these old BC Rich Platinum Series and you actually know what the body is made of, because I would love to know that. Otherwise, that's the guitar. It's pretty sick, it's pretty metal. This is one of BC Rich's most coveted shapes. Lots of BC Rich players love this shape, and there's actually kind of like a cult following for the Ironbird shape as well. A lot of people really like this thing. So yeah, without further ado, let's plug it in and see how it sounds. for today's video on this BC Rich Platinum Series Ironbird. Once again, fantastic guitar, and very privileged to work on one of these older 80s and 90s BC Riches. I'm actually not sure of the year, so if you know of the year of when these Platinum Series first came out or when they were first issued from, let me know in the comments below, as well as your favorite BC Rich guitar if you have one. If you want to see more BC Rich guitars like this on the channel, let me know, because I'm going to do my best to get some more on for you, because they were one of my very first favorite brands as a kid growing up playing guitar. And if you like this video, consider giving it a thumbs up. It lets me know that I'm doing a good job and you like the things that I make for you. If this is your first time here, consider subscribing, because I have tons more content like this on my channel, whether it's guitar setups, little repairs like that, setup tutorials, covers, gear demos, all that good stuff. That's kind of what we do here. Thanks for checking this out, and I'll see you next time.